Hi, welcome back to Dear Beautiful. I am Lucy. I'm trying to get in a little bit more of a kind of routine and a schedule with putting my YouTube content up. So from now on, you will be finding our weekend vlogs going up every single Wednesday, and then every single Friday when you'll be watching this, or when this has gone live, you might not be watching it on Friday, but every single Friday I'm going to put up something different. So it might be, most of the time it's going to be something chatty, and I'm just going to talk about whatever I fancy talking about that week, or we might have done a specific thing that I want to share. So that's kind of going to be the routine from now on. And today I'm starting my kind of new feature with literally one of my favourite topics ever: baby names. Now, I have talked about baby names before. I've talked about where my kids' names came from and some of the ones that we rejected, but today I'm going to share 10 baby names that I absolutely love but will not be using. So without further ado, I've obviously got 10 to get through and I need to talk about them, so I'm going to crack on. The first one is a girl's name, and this name is Avery. Now, Avery can, I believe, be a boy's name or a girl's name, but Rich and I both really like this for a girl, and we like this for a girl when we were pregnant the third time around when we had Quinn. So I just think it's such a pretty name. It sounds kind of girly, but it's still quite modern, and I absolutely love it. But as much as we talked about the fact that we loved it, it just was too similar to Everly for us. To be fair, if I had to choose between Everly and Avery, I do definitely prefer the name Everly. I love that name, which is probably why I like the name Avery, because they're not dissimilar sounding, but they were too similar sounding, I felt, for sisters. My second name is a boy's name. I'm going to kind of do girl, boy, and this name is one that I really like and have liked for quite a long time, and I always kind of pitch it to Rich, and I know exactly what his name is going to be every time I've said it, and that name is Reuben. Now, I think it's a really nice name. I think it's obviously very traditional, but it's kind of unusual. You don't hear of a lot of Reubens, and I just think it's a really, really nice name. But Rich categorically would not entertain any names beginning with R, because our surname begins with R, and he has hated his whole life having the same initial for his first and second name, and he just was not willing to impose that on one of his children, which I understand and I respect that, but I do really love the name Reuben, and it does make me a bit sad. Which brings me on to my third one, which is kind of dismissed for the same reasons, and that is a girl's name which I adore, and that's Rosalie. I love it. Such a pretty name. I think it sounds really, really nice alongside Dylan and Everly, and I think when to be fair, I remember us talking about it when we were pregnant with Everly, and then it came up again when we were pregnant the third time around, and I still really think it's such a pretty name. It's got that kind of flowery reference with the kind of rose bit, but it's not a flower name, and it's a bit more modern, and it's very pretty, and I just love it. But for the same reason that Reuben was off the table, so was Rosalie. The fourth name that I love but won't be using is another boy's name, and that is Archer. Now, I think this is a really cool, quite a modern sort of name, but it's also kind of has this traditional feel because it kind of brings up these images of physically of an archer with a bow and arrow. I think it's a really kind of cool, funky sort of name for a little boy, but Rich just didn't like it. Rich said, it sounds like a surname, it doesn't sound like it should be a first name. He said, and it would get shortened to Archie. I probably would have just insisted on him being called Archer all the time, but no, Rich was not a fan of Archer. Damn it. And my fifth name that I love that I won't be using is a girl's name, and this actually we very nearly did use, but now I won't use. So that name is Addison. That was actually the girl's name that we had ready when we were pregnant with Dylan. And had Dylan been a boy, had Dylan been a girl, she would have been called Addison. Rich and I both love that name. I think it's very modern and quite contemporary, but we like the fact you could shorten it to Addie, and we just thought it was really, really cute. The reason that I categorically will not be using it is that I cannot now drop the association for me with that kind of fictional baby girl that I thought I was going to have, but then I had Dylan. So I just can't attach that name to another baby somehow. Does that make sense? So yes, Addison, I love the name, but won't be using it. The next boy's name I've got is another one that Rich dismissed straight off the bat, but which is one I really love, and that name is Cooper. I really like that whole kind of surnames as first names thing. I know it's quite American, but I really like it. I think it's kind of modern, and I like the fact that it means the names don't sound completely wacky and out there and made up, because they're names that you've heard, but I think it gives a slightly more unusual twist on a name. But Rich hates it, so I loved the name Cooper and really did fight for the name Cooper. I thought it was really cute, but 'twas not to be with my slightly more traditional husband. He just wasn't having any of it. The next name that I love, that I will not be using, is actually the first name that Rich and I talked about using when we had children, way back when we were still at university. And I can remember us having a conversation about how many kids we'd like to have when we grow up, and I said that I wanted to have a little boy called Dylan and a little girl called Lily. And Rich said that was a really nice name, and we both really liked that name. We were really attached to the idea of having a Lily. But when we were talking about that all those years ago, Lily wasn't a massively popular name, and then around about the time Rich and I moved in together, there were a flurry of people that I knew that had Lilies. And actually I don't think it is quite as popular now as it was a few years ago. There was a real kind of flower name phase for a while there, but I just couldn't now bring myself to use Lily, partly because I feel like it's a little bit more popular, and also because actually we have made the conscious decision to avoid using the same initials of anybody. So I wouldn't want to have a Lily now because I'm a Lucy. And I feel like that would be like a postal nightmare. So, you know, just on a purely practical basis. And another L name that had to be scrapped from the list, but was very, very nearly used if Everly had been a boy. And that is either Lucas or Luca, or Luke probably, but I think we probably would have gone with Lucas. We had real trouble picking boys' names when we were pregnant with Everly because we'd used both the names that we loved for Dylan. But Lucas was one of the ones that we bandied around, and in the end we kind of settled that maybe we would use it for a middle name, but we didn't particularly want to use it for a first name because I'm a Lucy and Lucy and Lucas, and they're very similar. But then at the same time I quite like the idea that our names would have been derived from the same thing and we would have had the same name meaning and stuff, but no. These last two names sort of pain me a little bit because these are names that I really genuinely do love, and I know I will not use, but I still feel a bit cross about it. So the girl's name, which is my number 9, is Harper. I love the name Harper. I've loved it since we were pregnant with Dylan. We talked about using it when we were pregnant with him. We took it off the plate when we were pregnant with Everly, mainly because Everly was our front running girl's name straight away and we didn't think about it. But then for a lot of my third pregnancy, Harper was the name that Rich and I were really considering using for our baby daughter. But I could not let go of the Beckham connection, and I didn't want to spend my whole life explaining the fact that yes, our daughter had the same name as Harper Beckham, but no, we hadn't copied the Beckhams, and no, we'd picked that name long before there was a Harper Beckham, but you know, such is. So yeah, I love the name Harper. I feel like it's modern and it's got that lovely kind of literary link with Harper Lee, and I just love it. And it just makes me so sad that I'm not ever going to have a Harper. If you are somebody that can get past the Beckham thing, good for you, because I wish I could, but I just couldn't. And finally, the boy's name is another one that I really, really love, but Rich and I ended up having so many arguments about it that we took it off the table, and that name is Finn. Now, I really like the name Finn. I really like single syllable names, surprise, surprise, with the baby that she calls Quinn. But I really love the name Finn. But Rich, felt quite strongly that we should at least give the baby the option of a longer name. So he was happy for it to be called Finn, but he wanted the baby to be called Finley or Finlay. And I really didn't want Finley or a Finlay, and I was really fighting for Finian, which I felt was a little bit more unusual. And yeah, I just liked Finian more. And Rich could not get behind Finian. So we kind of came to this stalemate where we both love Finn, but Rich did not want to just call a baby Finn, and we couldn't agree on a longer version of it. So we just took the name off the table. So they were my 10 names. They were my 10 names that I love but won't be using. There are so many more. I honestly could talk about babies' names until like I was blue in the face. I love talking about baby names. I think that it's just such an exciting topic. If you are into baby names, it is one of the Channel Mum topics this month. So if you pop over to Channel Mum, you will find tons of other mum and dad vloggers talking about baby names and names they love, names they're not using, all of that jazz. So it is definitely one of my YouTube guilty pleasures, watching baby name videos. So if that is you, that I will pop the link in the description box so that you can pop across and watch them all too. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you've kind of liked this sort of informal chit-chatty type thing. If you have any topics that you would like to hear me chatter about in the future on a Friday, pop them in the comments and I will see what I can do. Make sure that you're subscribed. Like I said, there'll be weekend vlogs going up every Wednesday and a chatty one every single Friday. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of them, and I will see you for my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.